Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar session. My name is Fernando and I come with the Region 9 Head Start Association, and I'm happy to be your webinar host today. So feel free to contact me via the chat option of Zoom with any logistical questions you may have regarding audio, video, or connection issues. Just so you know, this webinar session will be recorded and will be made available for on-demand consumption within 24 hours. You may find the recording of this session up on our YouTube channel. To access our YouTube account, please visit our website at www.region9hsa.org. Once you get to our website, you will scroll to the bottom of our homepage, and there you will find a link to our YouTube channel. Also, a certificate of participation, PowerPoint slides, and other resources will be linked to the session online. We encourage your participation today, so feel free to send us your questions and or comments via the Q&A option or chat, and we will do our best to accommodate them as we have a large number of participants today. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our topic, At a Time of Crisis, the Best of Us to the Front. And here is Edward Condon from the Region 9 Head Start Association to introduce our two speakers. Thank you.
Well, good morning from Sacramento, and thank you, Fernando, for opening up this call and for all of the participants who have joined us. But most importantly, thanks to Luis Hernandez and Connie Jo Smith, two good friends and confidants for years who have taken on the challenge of jumping in to bring goodness, positivity, and some great strategies to our work. Also, thanks to the Training and Technical Assistance Services at Western Kentucky University for their partnership in this. This is one of a series of webinars that we are hosting during the month of late March through April, both to support our members here in Region 9 and really throughout the reach of our webinar series. We see folks here from Guam and California, Nevada and Arizona, but we also see folks here from Michigan and Florida and so forth. So we're so pleased to have you join us and be able to take advantage of this resource that's been made as a gift to us. So with that, let me just go ahead and again, thanks Luis, thanks Connie Jo. Buckle up, I think you're gonna have some fun, and let us know how Region 9 can be supportive of you along this journey. Have a great day.
Great.
Go for it, Luis.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, those of you who are in Eastern time, and very early good morning for the folks in Guam. This is an incredible opportunity for all of us here in these very difficult times we're living in. I think our intentions here between Connie Jo and I is to have a conversation to really deal with our own anxieties and maybe help you with your own anxieties as we go through. Maybe we have some good ideas. So want to put it up front. We're not mental health specialists, psychologists. We are folks that work with, certainly with a lot of professionals in the early childhood field, specifically Head Start. And so I think we may have some good things that you may take away from our conversation today. So Connie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm Connie Jo Smith. I'm from Panama City Beach, Florida, and my pal there that's been introducing us is from Miami, Florida. We usually get together in person, and there's a lot of hugging going on, as you can tell from the pictures we've had. But today we're going to have to hug each other from a distance, and that's one thing that we do really well because it keeps us going. So what kind of things do you think we'll talk about today, Luis?
You know, I think, there's so much stuff out there right now to talk about in terms of how to deal with this crisis. And if anything, we'd sort of digest it into, 5 sort of areas we want to say, address. First of all, how do we, find the best in us at this difficult time? How can we be the very best people that we are? Because sometimes we are called to leadership, and this is the moment for us to be our best. Then how we can be very proactive and positive as we face this crisis, not only with our own homes and families, but certainly with our own communities. Then the important thing of certainly making connections. As you know, Connie, this whole social distancing is killing me because I want to give hugs and we can't do that right now, but hugs to everybody across the nation as we start this work. And also, how do we take care of ourselves? The self-care issue is going to be really important. And lastly, maybe a little funny, but how do you stay sane? How do you keep a sense of sanity throughout out of all of this? So I think to start, just to get some of this anxieties we're all experiencing, and again, we want to be able to recognize and acknowledge that each of us are really confronting, whether consciously or unconsciously, fears and anxieties and stress and things that are very deep within ourselves. So hopefully this conversation, our time together, our energy will maybe subsidize that. So let's start with some breathing wherever you are. How about that? Is that okay, Connie? Can
Good.
we do that?
That's wonderful.
All right, everybody. Sort of breathe in and breathe down. Breathe in, breathe down, breathe in, and breathe down. And let's roll those shoulders a lot back, back, and forward, forward, and forward. And then hands up in the air. And then in case somebody forgot to do this to us, give yourself a hug here, okay? And sort of rock yourself a little bit. I think we're all in need of some extra hugs at this moment. So that's how we want to be able to start. So again, less stress. Our disclaimers, we're not experts at this, but if anything, this is a conversation between Connie and I. And again, hopefully some ideas and strategies that some of them may resonate more than others. And again, it's great to have all of you here. Anything else, Connie?
No, I think we can move forward.
Let's do that. So as we look at this, boy, we've been around together for a long time, Connie. As you can see, our professional lives and our stage of development where we are in terms of our age, we've been working together for decades, literally, across the nation. And some of those pictures, we were in New Orleans, Minneapolis. We've done a lot of work, certainly in Savannah. And that's really, you know, what really keeps us motivated, through working with folks that work with young children. So as we're looking at these pictures of us, enough of those, look at them.
Oh,
We were
gee.
younger and thinner, as you can see.
Just a little bit, just a little bit.
A little bit.
Oh.
So the first thing we want to be able to talk about is how can we, the very best in us, how can we really bring to the forefront at this time of crisis, how can I really be the best of me? So one of the things we want to be able to really think about is, you know, how do I get, you know, a sense of confidence? You know, how do I stay informed through all of this stuff? How do I stay, you know, safe and secure, which is really an important element. Something that is challenging for some of us at this time of life is how can I be kind? Regardless of the circumstances, the whole idea of being kind. Being charitable certainly is going to be one of those things that, you know, that comes from within me. And certainly the whole idea of loving, you know, how is my heart reaching out to those who really, they need it more than I do. So how can I be the very best of me? And part of that is, again, the whole issue of confidence and being well informed. So with that in mind, Connie, how do you keep yourself the best of you during these difficult times? What kinds of things are you doing for yourself?
Well, I have to say that sometimes it is hard because normally if I am walking in my neighborhood and someone on the sidewalk across the street on the other side sneezes, I would probably yell, "Bless you," or "Take care." But now what I do is I think, which way was the wind blowing? Which way was her face pointing? So we have to realize that kindness not only is something that we show outwardly, but it's our inside thoughts that sometimes gets us going, and we're sort of afraid of strangers when we might not have been before. So what I have to do to keep myself going is to have that self-talk, so that I remind myself it is a frightening time out there, but there are some things that I can do if I continue to build skills and I'm confident and I stay informed by checking on people who, making sure it's not fake news and that I'm double checking information. So that's kind of what I've been doing. How about you, Luis? What have you been doing?
You know, I've been thinking a lot about this whole issue of confidence, and, you know, we have it up there as the first item. And those of us who can remember some of our grandparents' stories of living through the Depression, for example, how adversity really can provide a sense of strength and a sense of confidence to move forward. So if we look at some examples within our own families, our own American history, that we've gone through very difficult times, and difficult times really calls for the very best in us to be, a leader. All of a sudden you are the leader, whether we like it or not. And I think that gives us a new sense of confidence going forward from here. But just some of the examples about some of these things that, I'm very lucky in my neighborhood, we are sort of looking after each other. Whenever I do a supermarket run, and we all try to minimize that, I'll say, hey, do you need anything? So I may shop for 2 or 3 families. I'm not going to pay for them, okay? But I'm going to be able to do a big shop and be able to bring it back to folks. Maybe some people who are not able to get out of the block as well. So that's the thing. And for me, as you guys, you know me, and many of our friends who are listening, maintain a sense of humor through all of this. Even in adversity and difficult times, sometimes humor can help us lift ourselves, lift our spirits in the best way possible. So there's enough stuff on Facebook and things that are being passed around. Even if I get a chuckle for like 30 seconds, that's worth it.
I agree. The humor is so important. One of the things that at first, when there were Facebook jokes and different kinds of things popping up, it was like, oh, is this okay to laugh at this? I mean, this is serious. But then you realize you have to laugh at some of it. You have to be able to have that balance. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about you, kind sir. So I'm very glad to have that connection with you.
Oh, but you know what's really killing me, don't you? I'm I'm an incredible extreme extrovert. So being inside the house for the last 2 weeks, just about, it kills me. The fact that I can give hugs and I can, play and do all the things that I've done to. So I think as an extrovert has been a little more difficult than other times. So how do I sort of balance that as well? And I appreciate you as my friend as being an introvert because, we balance each other out all the time. And I think part of what we want to say here is you got to be able to keep in mind the different personalities and different temperaments of those who you live with, how to be able to be respectful of each other so that we give time and space to those introverts. And for the rest of the folks, whenever we extroverts starts acting up, or acting out, please just say, go outside, or go to the backyard. You're driving me crazy. How are you handling all of this?
Actually, it's sort of an introvert's world, I think. We probably handle this really well. I've seen some memes on Facebook early on that said, I've practiced for this my whole life as an introvert. So I think that it's probably less difficult because we get our energy by being alone and doing solo kinds of activities. But I think as an introvert, I have to be very careful not to dig myself into that isolation too much. So I need you and folks like you to say, hey, stick your head up here and let's talk, even if it's by phone or over the fence or your driveway to my driveway. So I think that that's an important thing that introverts need from the extroverts.
Yep. I'll tell you, one of my wonderful neighbors said, she loves her family dearly, her 2 young kids, her husband, but now that they're home all the time and she's an incredible introvert, it's driving her crazy. So, she's trying to balance all of that out. So, hey, respect one another, I think is one of the things about being the best of you, especially those folks who are all around you.
Absolutely. Now, I wanted to share a slide about someone in Bowling Green, Kentucky, who's a preschool teacher, and she has demonstrated many of these characteristics that we had, these tips that we had on this last slide. She definitely showed some confidence because she learned something new. She is using Zoom with her preschool kids. Now, I'd heard of a lot of ways that Zoom was being used. Just this morning, I heard of somebody using it for AA meetings. I've heard of lots of colleges are using it to finish out their semester. I have a great niece who is using Zoom for her elementary school. So it's all over, but I think that it's probably especially a challenge for preschoolers. She did something to help with some normalcy with her preschool Zoom class, and that is she read a story to them, something she did when they were in the classroom together. So I thought that was kind of a really fun way to sort of have something new, but also use something that makes it normal and stable for kids.
Yeah, I'm sure for the kids, it's so great to see, your teacher up on the screen. And I think for many teachers, depending on your temperament and personality, you would break out into a new personality for those kids. I saw one where a teacher found a bunch of hats and, play crowns that she plays with, and she puts them on, and she's become a number of personalities for her kids. So I encourage, use all the props. This is a great time for early childhood to really be creative, to reach our audience, which is young children, with magic, the magic of that creates a sense of stability, and that people are thinking about me. So that in itself, I think is great. So I have a hat, Connie, that
All right.
have we been, I have a top hat, it's a little too
Ooh.
big, so maybe I can just do a little song and dance at some way. But truly, just be creative at this time, just like Jennifer has been.
Man, you didn't tell me. I would have looked for a hat.
I'm sure you got a bunch of
Let's
them.
see.
Perfect.
All right.
So from here, we're talking about them being proactive, and so what do we mean by being this whole idea of being proactive? How do you see that?
Well, I think that one of the things we need to do is to balance that with having some routine, because if we have routine, again, that's the familiar with the new, but we also may have to look at doing things differently than what we normally do them. And remembering that it's not just the way that I want to do it, but it might impact a lot of other people too. So I think we have to really look at this as a valuable time that we can, I don't know, do things that we'd been meaning to do, try things that we had hoped to try, and jump out there instead of just sitting and waiting and seeing what happens. What do you think?
Well, I think procrastination could be really our worst enemy at this time. This is a time to really, for us to take stock of things that I've been meaning to do, want to do. There's enough stuff around each of our apartments or houses or farms that needs to be cleaned up. And it's just really, don't put things off. This is the moment for us to really sort of pivot and become nimble as these changes occur. So again, just really look at what, there's a lot of literature, it's a lot of experts who are talking about how to be keeping yourself together through all of this. Remember, this is not about me. This is not happening just to me because it's happening, but it's all of us are really part of this whole issue that's going on. Which really gets into this whole thing about what you can control and what kinds of things you can let go of, which I think is an interesting concept for us to really think about, because we always some of us who are control freaks, we think we can control all the circumstances around our lives, but actually they are beyond us. And what are those things that, I can let go? I can let go and really concentrate on things that I can certainly be very proactive, all of that. So for example, here, Connie, in terms of being proactive, how do you follow and believe everything that you're reading out there? How are you dealing with all the media and all that other stuff? How are you proactive in that?
I'll tell you, my head would be spinning around and around and around if I was following all of it. The first few days I did. I listened to everything I could. I watched everything. I read. I had TV on. And then, I just wanted to sort of go screaming like, no, this is way too much. So now I've sort of figured out the people who I want to follow, and I want to see what they have to say. I've tried hard not to even think about the politics of any of it, but to just focus on the health part and get my information that way. And I did learn a lesson last night. I thought I was being really good at checking information, making sure it was right. But I saw something on Facebook that said that the governor of Kentucky was closing all of the liquor stores and they would not be open again. You could not buy alcohol after, you know, the end of last night. So I immediately text a couple of friends I have in Bowling Green who I knew that would be a real hardship for, and let them know that I had just seen this. And they both, of course, went into panic mode and wanted to know if it was true. I went back and I followed the link. And when I followed the link, it said, "You've been pranked." So I had to go back and let them know, no, they did not have to run right that moment to the to get more wine, because it was not the truth. And so I learned my lesson about not spreading something that I hadn't followed all the way through. And I think we have to be careful about that. I caused panic among 2 people, but if we send this information out to like all of our parents or everybody in the program, we could cause massive panic sending information that's not real.
Well, I'll tell you, the information I want to know is the whole toilet paper issue, right? Why why do we have this crisis happening? And we're still trying to figure that out, And I'm sure those of us who bought a lot of it, you're going to be set for the next 5 years, you know that. So, and then those of us who are late, we're knocking a lot of doors and say, "Can you send me a little package?"
Yeah, just a little one.
So yeah, a little one. So yeah, so let's move on with this issue of being proactive. Oh, good stories here. Yeah, being proactive.
Yeah.
Which I love this.
Yeah, and this is only one example of many that I have seen that have done this. This is in Cumberland Trace Elementary. This is in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And the staff members decided they wanted to see the students and the family. So they drove through the community where the students were, honked and waved and held up signs. Parents and children were on the side of the road honking and waving. We've provided links. We've provided all of the information about everything that we're showing you on here. So you'll be able to see that on the handout or at the end of the PowerPoint if you're looking at it at a different time. But the wave parade was so popular that I've seen it lots of places. Have you seen it any place?
I have not seen it, but I've read about it. And then later we'll talk certainly about the bears. But yeah, and I think it's a way of really maintaining that connection and being proactive. If the children cannot come to our physical building, maybe I can take myself physically in my car safely, safe distance, and maybe wave at the kids. That in itself could be something that is reassuring for the families, for the children, and certainly for us. I always have to keep reminding ourselves how important we are in the lives of children and families. And if we can maintain that relationship, because again, we got to get back to this whole idea of relationships, right? And what different ways we can maintain that.
And this happened in a small town. There could be other totally different ways that you're able to do this if you're in a city situation or a more rural area. So you just have to look at what might work for you wherever you are.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, back to the control issues, huh? So this is a great poster I think I got from Facebook and we shared together. And it's just something that is sensible. We want the sensible, the practical, the things that just get to the point of the matter. And really what I cannot control, again, the amount of toilet paper at the store, there is no way I can control that. There's a whole distribution routes and trucks and who knows what else to get the toilet paper to my supermarket. And certainly the actions of others. This is a time for us to really maybe be a little less judgy about what other people are doing and really be proactive about the things that you're doing, the things that I can control. So, and for that is, what is my attitude? What is my attitude? And in some ways we have to be an incredible role model certainly for my own family and my neighbors and others in the community, that I got to remain positive. If you want to be just a doomsayer, there's enough doom out there at this moment. And then we fall into a trap. So how can I lift my own spirit and the spirits of others? Yes, I may have my background fears, my anxieties, my stress levels, but I got to be this is where the courage part of being the best that I am, has to come out. So truly look at the attitude that we have, you know, and am I being sensible about those recommendations and guidelines from the Center of Disease Control? So, and please, please, please turn off the news, okay? I don't care what language you're listening to, but, you know, minimize it as much as possible, because it can be very addictive. Our brains go into another mode of thinking and doing, and it really affects, I think, our health. So, yeah. So please just have control as much as you can, and let go of the things you have no control over.
And so, Luis, I'd like to point out you do have control over what you use instead of toilet paper.
Oh, absolutely. You know, in my household, it's like, okay, 4 sheets. Okay.
Wow, you know, this one on connections makes me think about you a lot. You must really be, you know, finding ways to try to make those right now.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. This whole physical distance has become really difficult. It's physical distance, not social isolation. By the way, there's a real, even social distance doesn't mean we have to be isolated from other people. We're still at the bottom of it. We're social beings, emotional beings, and we need each other, especially at a time of crisis. You know, and what is my gesture? What is my act? What are my words that really can convey a sense of connection with other people? Please, and there's no excuse nowadays, Connie. I mean, technology, those old folks like myself, you know, here we are doing Zoom. Who knew, you know, right? So we're learning. We have to keep doing that learning, and we can connect with people. I tell you, I think if anything about all of this, I've been sort of connecting even with high school friends, sending a little note. Hey, thinking about you. How you doing? How's the family? Just thinking about you. You don't have to respond, you know, but I'm thinking about you. The fact that someone is thinking about us really can uplift someone, maybe for the moment, maybe for the day, but who knows? So reach out, you know, and this is how we create, I think, a real sense of community. What are you doing?
Well, we may have to reach out in new ways, like I've been having happy hour on FaceTime
No.
with some neighbors, and we visit. The other night we were online with each other for 2 hours. We didn't even realize it. It was like, oh wow, you know. So that's been a really nice thing for me. Also, with the communicating, there probably are some older school things that might be helpful for us in a work setting. There may be people that don't have some of the internet access, so there might need to be paper and pencil kinds of things. You know, years ago in colleges, when people had distance learning, that meant there was a packet of information that was mailed that people processed, you know, writing things down and then mailed it back for their grades. So it could be that we need to look at some things that maybe include old school as well. And I know Western Kentucky University, kind of in the transition there, they set up hotspots in their parking lots in some of the different communities that they were in, so that students who did not have internet at home could come to the parking lot and within their own cars, keeping hopefully their their physical distance, they were able to work on their classwork there. So there's middle roads and there's far extremes that we might have to look at.
You know, Connie, you mentioned old school, and hey, I'm a graduate of old school here. Somebody even mentioned in the chats here about writing, the art of writing. Maybe, by the way, did you ever thank everybody who gave you a Christmas gift? This is a great time to say thank you for that Christmas gift. Those of you who had a wedding and you haven't written your thank you notes, this is a time to do a thank you note. The birthday was, you know, last August, send them an early August birthday card, whatever it may be. Again, this is the whole idea of connecting with one another, depending again on your personality, your style. But I think that the little connections, and me, I have to be the proactive person to do it. Don't wait for somebody else to do it to you. Just do it. Go forward, push forward with this. So Connie, where do we go from here?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see where we go from here.
Oh, I love this one. Yay. Oh, great.
Again, this is one that is happening all over. I've seen so many different communities where people are going, say the kids want to go on a bear hunt. So they're playing on the book, and different communities are putting bears in their windows or in their yards for kids to look at as when they're in their community where they're able to go for family walks, get out, have some fresh air. How about your community, Luis? Are they doing that?
You know, one of the moms with two young kids sent out an email to all the neighbors, and the neighbors said, "What are you talking about?" And people started putting the bears out, and the kids are coming down the street finding the bears. Now they're doing this on a regular basis, so part of the trick now is to move the bears around the yard so that there's a new find every time. I particularly don't have a bear in my house, but I found a dinosaur. So little Jay, who lives down the street, he's really into dinosaurs, and for him, this guy moves every day. He's in a different spot. So his whole thing is to find, where's the dino, Luis? Where's the dino, Luis? So he comes over, and I think it's just a fun thing. Again, we're connecting with each other across ages. We're building community. There's a lot of smiles going on, and it's fun. Now, if you want to take fun to another level, and you mentioned happy hour with your friends, maybe I've been thinking of doing like a margarita hunt, just glasses of margarita, and the adults have to find it maybe, around 6 o'clock one evening. So, do a margarita hunt for your neighbors as well.
I like it. I think that's good. I did see a picture of people sitting out on their lawn with drinks with a big sign that said, honk and we'll drink.
Perfect. Oh, lots of things. So what's going on now with all this Zoom stuff that we've been talking about? Oh.
Well, I think that what I did today is I only combed my front part of my hair, and I've got clothes on my front, but on the back are my pajamas. So I'm not going to be turning around any here.
As you can see, I really worked on my hair for this presentation. So I think what we're getting on, as we start doing more Zoom things, by the way, the good thing is you don't have to take a shower or brush your teeth, but please do, okay? But we got to look, somewhat presentable for our colleagues and our friends, and there's a whole protocol about it. Those of you who maybe, I don't know where you are in the spectrum of Zoom experiences. Some of us are just starting. Some of us are really up there with it. If you want to see what not to do, there's something called Zoom bloopers. And if, when people go to Zoom meetings and they start, picking their nose and they think nobody's watching. Yeah. So, hey, just really try to think about this media as something that is, there's a whole issue of protocol, how to best use this, because again, we're connecting with our colleagues, with our friends, even with our own and families we work with as well, and the kids. So yeah, your presentation is very different from just on the phone. Okay, so yeah, do it.
Yeah. So if you're in Zoom, don't go to the bathroom unless it's to show how to wash your hands.
Absolutely. So here we are with this whole issue of self-care, which is absolutely important. Because, we talked about just being well and the well-being, socially and emotionally, but also we have to think of our own physicality. How are we doing? How am I taking care of myself when I'm living in an apartment with one room, or, do I have a yard? Do I have a front yard? Nothing like that. How is it that I'm going to keep myself in good shape? And if anything, we'll talk a little bit about certainly using our bodies, physical exercise, all those things that are active. Those of us who we've been thinking about maybe doing new things like yoga and meditation, whatever it is, it's time to try it. I've been doing Zoom, yoga Zoom, and I thought, oh, this is going to be so weird. But you know what? It worked really well. So I say, go for it. Try it. If you don't like it, do, something else, Tai Chi. Again, and this is a message that we want to be able to emphasize. Again, check your moods. If you're really the depression, the stress, the anxiety is really heavy on you, get help. People who you can fight with, maybe a professional, so that you're able. This is part of the self-care. Check yourself out into my emotions. Am I running short with how I communicate with my children or my spouse or whoever? How am I related to others in a positive way? And so check your moods for sure and get help. a great time for, you know, a lot of good spring cleaning right now. We have enough junk out there in those garages. And you know, there's a writer named Maria Konda who talks about, you know, getting rid of stuff you don't adore. So you may want to ask yourself, does this object adore me, and do I adore it? And if not, donate it. And then all the extra things that we can do just to keep busy, absolutely busy. And remember, you got to do you and let others do themselves. Okay, it's about me taking care of myself so that I can really be good to other people as well. So what are you doing for taking care of yourself, my friend?
Well, I am washing my hands and washing my hands and washing my hands. I really liked the thing I saw that said, can we take a shower now, or are we still just supposed to be washing our hands? So I'm also looking for toilet paper quite often, and both of those are very physical activities, maybe not as physical as yours. Um, but for those of you who are perhaps more like me than Luis, I do have a lovely, gentle chair yoga video that I found on YouTube that I'm using regularly. And I'm taking, I would call them strolls more than walks in my neighborhood, which gives me a chance to take care of my body a little bit, but also I get to wave at people and dodge the sneezes. So it's physically challenging sometimes.
I tell you, I've been doing a lot of walking, which is great because everybody else is walking. I'm very fortunate to live in a neighborhood, you know, lots of houses and families, and all of a sudden, by late afternoon, there are families with their kids and strollers and single people and couples, and you know, all of that. Just walking is just so, in a way, really refreshing. So it's a way of taking care of my inner self, but also my physical self. But really, it turns into an hour and a half, sometimes a 2 hour walk, which I think is very healthy. So I think, you know, we have to think what is going to be best for me, but really do something physically. And if you're able to leave, you know, where you live, maybe you live in an apartment building up in the 30th floor. Oh, that's going to be a little more difficult, but think of ways that you can really engage your body in something that is going to be part of the self-care, you know, part of the self-care, whatever it is, even if it stretches, just do it. It's really, I think it's just really, by the way, and it's fun. As you said, you get to wave. So I guess we're using fine motor skills right here.
Yeah.
And we're able to, you know, do many of those things. And by the time you come home and you have dinner, you'll feel much better.
You know, we are very fortunate, Luis, because both of us have had fantastic weather,
Yeah.
and we both live in a house where we have a place where we can sit outside. And I know that it's probably more challenging if you are in that apartment building. You might have to dance on your balcony or find some other way to be able to enjoy that outside time. So.
Yeah, we are very fortunate, many of us. So use whatever you have and give thanks. Oh, wow. What are these guys doing in St. Paul? I think we have people from Minnesota on this call. So, hey, Minnesota, here you go.
Hey, maybe they're even, you know, in this neighborhood. That'd be wonderful. So these folks in this community decided they would get together and they would exercise at night. And they stay their distance apart from each other as they exercise. And the article then talks about how after they finish their exercises, many of them stay still in their space and have a visit time and communicate with each other. So this is one of the many articles that highlight things that communities are doing so that there's some physical activity, self-care, but also some socialization and connection. So I thought this was a really cool one. Again, you have to think about your community, what might work for you, what might work in the communities where the families and children that you serve are, and what kinds of things might work for them. So it might be very different place to place.
Yep. And if you happen to have driveways, you know, after you do all those physical exercise, sit down and have happy hour and wave again to your neighbors across the street. Oh, great. So the last one is really staying sane, you know, and the whole issue of sanity through this crisis. Not that we want to minimize any of the trauma we're going through and all the anxieties, but truly is how do I maintain, you know, myself together? This whole issue of being sane throughout this. first of all, I think is we got to recognize that this is a very difficult time for every person, every child that we know, in terms of, children feel it, that older adults feel it, so the anxiety, the fear is all part of that. So I got to be able to recognize it and, find ways of how to minimize it, how to take care of it, how to get help whenever it's needed. How do I stay positive through a lot of this stuff? What do I bring into it? So some of the things that staying insane and some of the things we talked about is, nothing better than to learn something new. So is a great thing. Actually, there was something about learning how to play video games. So there's a whole generation, I'm sure, who are listening to this. They've been playing video games forever, but a lot of us who have not, this may be a good opportunity to, get together with our teenagers and play Fortnite or some of those other games that they play. Take up knitting. I don't know. What do you think, Connie?
Well, Luis, I have been so impressed by the generosity of so many people. I've seen free online cooking lessons. I've seen free people teaching you how to draw or how to do painting for a class or two free. And so there's just so much out there that people are willing to give. And I don't, normally that doesn't happen, but people are willing to share themselves. And I think that's pretty cool. That's a really good thing that's coming out of this time.
Yeah. Not only people, but institutions, organizations, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about museums and zoos, but the whole idea of being able to really reciprocate with kindness across between people and institutions, I think that's part of the things. And remember, no matter how small of a community you're in or how large you're in, there are things that now we can access across the globe. So if you want to take a tour of the museums in Paris, the Louvre, there is a tour, a virtual tour of the Louvre. But although in Madrid, you can do that. So a great way of really stepping outside of ourselves, stepping outside of our own comfort zones, and be able to do something maybe a little bit different. This is a good time to, really the whole issue of how do I stay sane? How do I stay curious? And through all of this. And please, lastly here is avoid the negative stuff, which is really the alcohol, the antidepressant, watching too much TV, which is really bad, I think. And also just staying away from the refrigerator, okay? The only way you got to go to the refrigerator is if you want to play an archaeological game and you got to dig out whatever's in the back of the refrigerator, okay? So anyway, do all those positive things. So you got something to share with us in terms of virtual tours, huh?
I do. First, I did read something that said, I've eaten 14 times and I've had 6 naps and it's still today. So we want to be careful not to get into that loop.
Oh, music. Yay.
Yeah. And, when we were talking about this before, Luis, you thought that my music was outdated, and I just don't know about that.
Well, I love, I grew up with James Taylor, so I know his music in and out, and certainly Melissa, and certainly Mary Chapman. But I think a lot of the folks who are in this call may have, a different playlist, okay?
Yeah.
So
And
find your own.
And that's okay too. But whoever it is that you like to listen to, many of them are giving free concerts, many of them online, many of them are on Facebook. They have like one day a week that they sing a song from their living room or their kitchen. And it's really fascinating to see people sort of out of the element we're used to seeing them in, which is a stage, and seeing them instead in a very personal way. So that's another way that people have been giving.
And it's a great way of bragging to your neighbors, like saying, Elton John is in my house right now, he's playing his music, Elton, right? Yeah, okay.
And in terms of being charitable, I've decided not to sing on Facebook for people because I think that would not be helpful for them. So
neither one of us. What else can we do virtually out there?
Well, there are many, many zoos that have webcams that are there, but I really like the Kansas City Zoo and their Penguin webcam. This is not live right now. It's just a screenshot of the picture. But again, the websites are provided for you on the handouts. And you might be able to use this just for your own sanity, or maybe you want to show it and watch it with children, or you want to use it in your program some way so that your families have this information to be able to share with their kids if that opportunity is there for them.
Great. Hey, Connie, someone just mentioned in the chat pages about Dolly Parton, who's also been reading stories to children online.
Another example of a great
Oh, giving, kindness, sharing her talent and her life with us. So if you haven't had an opportunity, I think you can go right into, you can Google it, okay? Dolly Parton singing and reading books to children. I think it's just one of those great things that can happen.
Yeah, and one of the things that happens is that we get bombarded, especially at the beginning of this, we got bombarded with a lot of people who were opening up their virtual cams or who were doing this or that. So there were really too many to sort of search through. And what might be helpful for the families or the teachers in your program would be to sort of slow that flow down and just highlight one or two examples at a time so that they have a chance to check it out and then move forward without their head rattling with so many opportunities that they have to take time to search them all out. So
absolutely. Yeah, because remember, at the end of the day, weeks from now, maybe months from now, we'll be able to give the children and ourselves that experience at a zoo, okay? And be able to take longer walks and physical things. By the way, we talked about physical things and music, Connie. Don't forget dancing. So remember, since we are confined in our own homes, you can dance however you like, okay? Nobody's going to judge you. So act like nobody's watching because no one is watching. So dance, dance, dance.
well, I did do the polka the other day, but there's no evidence.
Great. So I think we've come almost to the end of our session here, but we got one more tour.
One more tour. Yeah, this is the Boston Children's Museum. And again, a lot of museums are open. But with this one, if you go to the web page and then you use your mouse to move around, it will have something for you to be able to navigate so you can walk up this line to admissions, you can turn left, and you can go and stop at different exhibits and look just like you were physically there. So it's a pretty cool way to be able to check out some of the museums. And then a lot of the museums also have activities that are included with the tour, so that way you can do some at-home hands-on things that go with it. So there's so much out there. It's almost overwhelming, but exciting too.
Yeah. And again, all we're doing is here, it's almost like little appetizers we're giving you. And again, part of learning is doing your own research and, discovering new sites and sharing that with others as well. So my friend, we've gone through this almost an hour together talking about the things that we're excited by. So what is, from our conversation, our time together, Connie, what are kind of like your takeaways or out of all these points?
Well, one of the things that, as we've been looking at different ways to survive this basically and thrive during it, it reminds me of, remember, I'm from Panama City Beach, Florida, and Hurricane Michael visited us a while back, and our whole community, our whole county was devastated, and we are still recovering from that. And I would say that really some of these things that you and I talked about in terms of being the best and being proactive, connecting with others, self-care, and staying sane, all of those are probably tips that would be helpful regardless of the kind of threat that we were under or situation that we had that was stressful. So I think they can be generalized and applied to different situations depending on where you live and what your role and responsibilities are. How about you?
Well, first of all, thank you to you for playing along with this presentation. It's always fun. I think part of our, theme for in our work in the past has been a sense of joy. How do we maintain a sense of joy in our lives, even during difficult times? And I think, if anything, at all those points that we brought up, hopefully this also gives a sense of hope, right? Encourage to continue in a very positive way. And if anything, for all of us who are listening to this, maintain your sense of self-control. We do have a sense of control in many of these issues. And how can I be the very best that we can be? Remember, we are the role models not only for the children and the families we work with, our own families, but certainly who we are as human beings. So thank you. Thanks everybody for the work you're doing and will continue to do. Great. It's been a great session. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. You want to let folks know who let us do this?
Oh, absolutely. Well, the good folks at the Region 9 at Cotton, I want to say thank you. And I think he's maybe coming in. To Ed and Fernando in Region 9, who really gave us a lot of the technical assistance and also the invitation. The invitation was like, hey, you guys want to do something with us? And we got to play. And this is our spirit of play and be able to share. And certainly our own organization, Training Technical Assistance Services at Western Kentucky University, who's giving us also the opportunity to play with others as well. So both organizations are at the forefront of really working with those of us, especially Head Start programs. That's the information you see now. Make sure, I think there's a number of people who were not able to be on this call. You can, refer them, and this will be shown again. I think it will be part of the archives in both organizations. So thank you for everybody, and certainly these two organizations. Thanks, Ed, especially for bringing us together. All right, Fernando and Ed, you're on.
Thanks, Luis. Thanks, Connie, Joe. Certainly appreciate your time, your enthusiasm, and your suggestions. Good ideas for us to move ourselves, our programs forward, and be ready for children and families as we re-engage with them, hopefully in May, as programs start back up, or maybe in the summer if your agency's choosing to do a summer program. Appreciate your time. Fernando, do you want to give us final comments on the location of the certificates as well as the recording?
Yes, I just wanted to say again, thank you, Connie and Luis, for the wonderful presentation. It was fantastic. Just looking at the chat, there was a lot of good conversation back and forth, and a lot of thank yous for your time today. Before we go into closing remarks, I just want to touch on two questions that we have lingering on our Q&A, just to see if we have an answer for them. So the first question asks, are any of you aware of any of these resources in Spanish? Any Spanish resources?
I guess since I'm the Hispanic on the panel, I'll try to answer that. There are some limited resources out there. I think some publishing houses have some things, but it's very, very limited at this point. That means that we have to become a learner and a researcher, do a lot of Google stuff. But right off the top of my head, I cannot pinpoint anything specific. And I wish I knew some more about, our friends in Puerto Rico, whether there are more things in Spanish out of Puerto Rico, but I'm not familiar with that. So yeah, I don't want to take, more time than that, but if you do find something, please send it on to Fernando or myself, and we can spread that as well. So great question, great comment.
Great. Actually, to piggyback off of that, we just got a comment from Kari. She said that Sesame Street has a toolkit in Spanish that you guys could use.
Oh, fantastic. Good old Sesame Street, huh? Yes.
And then the last question we have here is, Jennifer needs ideas that are non-screen time for infants and toddlers. Do you have any suggestions for her?
Connie, you have anything for infants and toddlers? I think if anything, I would say, let me jump since I've had a lot of coffee. I think the work there would be more with the parents. I think that's a closer relationship in some ways. Things that we can be more direct with parents that they can do them with their infants and toddlers. But that's just the top of my head as a strategy that it's always challenging. But I think just looking at the relationship with the families. Connie, what do you think?
Well, I do think the relationship with the families, and then we can also have, again, the paper and pencil information that goes to the families. In terms of the screen time, I mean, there's wonderful music that we could share with the infants and toddlers, all kinds of different music. We could also look at different You know, you can even show pictures of bubbles, and then also encourage the families maybe to try bubbles at home if they can, if you provide the information. So it could be that it might be a combination of not the screen time for the infants and toddlers as much as for the families working with them in this situation.
Yeah.
And guys, let me just jump in and add that we're going to be doing a webinar next week with Erica Flores on the 7th at 2 o'clock, and she's specifically going to call out a focus on infants and toddlers. So we have that coming up. We're also recruiting webinars for both the week of the 6th as well as the week of the 13th. You know, stay tuned. If by chance there's someone on the line listening to this webinar who's a specialist in that area, please be in contact with us. We're doing these webinars for free for the community, and welcome folks like Connie, Joe, and Luis to join us in that gift. So we're looking for that kind of support to bring to you. So contact us if you have resources, suggestions, or requests, and we'll do our best to accommodate that.
Great. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to remind everybody, since it's a common question in the chat, that this session was recorded and will be made available online within 24 hours, hopefully sooner than that. You will find the recording up on our YouTube channel, and to access our account, please visit our website at www.region9hsa.org. Scroll down to the bottom of our homepage and you will find a link to our YouTube account. Also, a certificate of participation, the PowerPoint slides, and other resources will be linked to this session online. To access the link, you will go again to our website, scroll down on our homepage, click on all events. Then you will have access to a search bar, type in the title of this session, and that will take you to the event page that has all these resources, plus the recording will be linked to that web page online. If you have any questions, our email is on our website, and feel free to reach out and we'll walk you through it and make sure you get whatever you need. I'd like to thank again to Connie and Luis for the time and wonderful presentation, and thank everybody who managed to join the session. Thanks again for your time, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Hugs.